You're Gen Z.
You're Gen Z.
I'm Gen Z.
Wow, so
I thought I was a millennial.
So wow.
we're millennials, right?
We're millennials. And we're told in society that we should dislike you for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. You suck.
Okay.
Yeah, you're rubbish.
You
Was
suck.
it because I'm younger than you and you're like...
No, you're
It's
really
just because
you're
of
really,
culturally,
you're really annoying.
you're a different...
like a different species.
Yeah.
Do you know, I mean, they're talking all the time nowadays about generations. What generation are you? What generation do you fit in? And for me, I found as an interesting marketing tool for this bloody channel, if I said that I was in Generation X, you know, there was a fair amount of traction. People were like, he's like me.
Which one is that?
I like him. Generation X.
Is that a new one?
What?
Is that an old one? Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's an old...
Is that pre-millennials?
Yes, it's
Right.
the one before millennials. So you have to be born between 1965 and 1980 to be Gen X. And millennials is 81 to 96-ish.
Wow.
Oh God, so what's after that? Gen Z?
That's Gen Z is
So I'm
after
Gen
96. You're Gen Z.
You're Gen Z.
I'm Gen Z.
Wow, so
I thought I was a millennial.
So
Wow.
we're millennials, right?
We're millennials. And we're told in society that we should dislike you for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. You suck.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
rubbish.
You
Was
suck.
it because I'm younger than you and you're like...
No, you're
It's
really
just because
you're really annoying.
You're a different...
like a different species.
Yeah.
You're annoying. They're annoying.
No. We're the good
So
ones.
you just
We're
like
the good
everyone.
ones. We're the good ones. You're
I
okay.
don't fit. No, I don't fit because
You're in between.
I'm really on the cusp because I don't want to give away too much personal information, but I was born very late 1980. So I'm like in the last couple of months of Generation
Clinging on.
X.
What do you feel more like? I don't even know what the characteristics of a Gen Xer are, to be honest.
Well, I don't feel a very strong affinity with millennials. I find them quite... There's things that they do where I'm like, I'd kind of agree with that maybe. But there's a lot of things that they do. I'm like, what are they doing?
I think you're spiritually a boomer.
Could be. I think the thing is, Gen X, sort of like, whenever I think of Gen X, it's weird. I think of Kurt Cobain. I think of Nirvana, because that to me is like the expression of the Gen X.
That was the musical reflection
Grunge.
of what you experienced.
Yeah.
Whereas we can't really relate to that because we were kind of Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we're just the carefree.
But I
you
think
were children.
I
You
think
were little
millennials had a
kids
harder
then.
time than you did, and I've got a couple of reasons
All
why.
right.
So the reason why we're meant to dislike boomers is because they. Am I allowed to swear?
We can dip it.
They did unconsciously fucked up the economy for everyone ahead of them, but we were the first mostly impacted generation.
Most fucked.
Because they bought all the houses quite cheap, but they bought them to rent them, and people made money doing that. But now there's no possible way for most of millennials to buy property, but they didn't know that they were going to fuck it up so badly. They just were. And so there's this idea, there's this like defensivity conflict between those generations. Also, I think it is fact that 96% of boomers voted for Brexit and they didn't really know what they were voting for.
Yeah.
Well, that's controversial immediately. Gen X, I would say, like probably benefited in the same way from the property, but like the first half of it did and the second half of it didn't. So there was like a cut-off point where you could buy a house and then suddenly you couldn't. So within the middle of that generation. So falling at the very end of that generation, I mean, obviously my situation isn't typical, but for most people, it was like suddenly out of reach. You needed like 5 times your annual income to sort of land a deposit or get a mortgage versus 1.5 times 10 years earlier or whatever it was. So, yeah, I mean, you may have a point. I think...
So if you dislike millennials, how do you feel about your Zs and your Alphas?
Well, it just gets so...
Does it get worse?
It just gets
as you go along,
distant. You see, the thing is, you start to get fed. You need to go out and meet people. This is one of the things that I'm very consciously aware of, and also sort of struggle with, because just the idea of having to do it becomes quite painful. And oh God, do I have to? But you do find that when you go and meet people, because you're okay,
Thank you.
you're like, oh, they're not the sort of monolith they've been built up to be, because what they do when you're my age is they send you a lot of messages along the lines of, fear these people, because when you are older, see how unreasonable they are about everything, see how they are so disagreeable and you can't talk to them, and they moan about everything and everything's so terrible. These are the people who will be looking after you in old age. And you go, whoa, I don't think I like that idea very much. So it does kind of make you like try and stay fit and healthy, because you go, yeah, I can't rely on these people to be there. But really, when you dig into everything, you go, well, I can't really rely on anything being there any longer. Like they have the state pension. When you're over 40, you start to think about pensions, right? I'm sorry to break it to you.
Wow.
You start to think about pensions, and then you realise, hang on, that's completely unsustainable. There won't be one. But nobody wants to say that. So the idea of getting to 66 now, or they keep pushing it up, 67, which is still 25 years away, or something like that, and there being like a state pension that you've kind of put into and now can draw from, that's not going to happen.
No.
Or at the very best, even for me, I mean for you lot, but for me it's going to be like 75 that'll kick in. They're just going to push it and push it and push it. And by the time you're there, it'll be 80.
80,
You know.
90, yeah.
Get
Yeah, and it'll be
there,
like,
aren't
oh right, so we get a year of that, and then we...
It might just be coupons.
Yeah.
Well, we
Like
might
a
have to give
voucher?
more money back in by the time we
Yeah.
retire. It's going to be a case of being charged, being
Yeah.
I
taxed.
think there's quite a big difference, going back to alphas, that like between my generation and alphas. I feel like there's a massive difference, because I feel like I'm kind of on the cusp of like millennials. I'm 97, so I feel like I'm so different to alphas.
But they're kids
And they're-
really, aren't they?
What year is
They're
Alpha?
teenagers, aren't they?
Was it 2010?
Was it 2010?
Yeah.
2010, I think.
Oh yeah, they're
But
aliens.
like, I grew up just on the back end of like social media, so that Instagram wasn't a thing till I was in like year 11.
So you're
So it's
probably
like
spiritually
15.
a millennial then,
So
really.
yeah, I feel
'Cause
like
think,
I
I think
am.
You're
I
on
think
the cusp.
Whereas I
social
feel like-
media's got to be the
Yeah.
social cut-off.
And like 10-year-olds that are on TikTok, I'm like, I feel way too old
Yeah, it's
for
a
that.
different world, yeah.
My
And they're
brother's
obsessed with it.
my brother's a millennial, and one of the key differences between his existence and mine, when he was in secondary school, he would get home from secondary school and he would start talking to his friends in chat rooms, like or MSN Messenger.
Yeah,
if any of
that's
you
it.
remember, that's a very
Yeah.
millennial.
Yeah.
Is that
thing.
before your time?
That was like when I was like just finishing high school.
Right,
That kind of came in.
Yeah.
I never had MSN.
No, you probably
like
were the
Facebook
next
was
thing
just coming
after
in.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were
Facebook.
like Facebook. Okay, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
MSN Messenger was really quite a simple chat room, and you had kind of a list of people that you'd allowed yourself to talk to, and he'd come home from school and start talking to all of his friends. So it was kind of made it, and it kind of sounds nice and social, but it's like you can never get a rest from it. Whereas with my situation, you came home and you were just at home. You had to call people on landlines if you wanted to meet up. So you go, oh, I think he'll be in at this time, and you'd call and his mum would pick up and go, oh hi, is Dave there? You know, it's always Dave, isn't it? And you go, oh, is Dave there? Oh no, he's out. Oh, do you know when he'll be back? Oh, about an hour, I think. Okay, I'll call again then. Or maybe she'd say, oh, I'll tell him and he'll call you.
But then you just sit around twiddling your thumbs.
Uh-huh.
Waiting
Yeah, you
on the
find
landline
something else
So
to...
it's no wonder really that I think generations do have this misunderstanding of each other, because every generation is kind of a product of their own environment, really, the way they communicate, and like
Yeah, it's not their fault. We shouldn't really dislike them because that's the environment that they're being brought up in.
No,
Yeah.
I just dislike them because they're really, really annoying.
Yeah.
It's the messages. They keep sending you messages about the others, about people who are not you, and telling you all the things that's wrong with them. And of course there'll be something wrong with them, because there's always, throughout history, a percentage of people have always been rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it didn't matter when they were born; they would still just be difficult to deal with. It's all the kind of noisy and annoying people that you constantly hear from, and you have a tendency to go, "How old are they?" Oh God, I hate people who are that age. And in reality, who you should be hating is them.
I see your point, but
personally,
it also does. That system does also kind of work.
Yeah.
Like 20-year-olds are insufferable.
Yeah.
It creates a divide, though. I think.
I don't know which came first, though. I don't know if I was told to dislike them and then I disliked them, or if I disliked
Also, aren't we
them
eventually
first.
like going to run out of like names? Kind of like we've got iPhone 15, and it started like I was alive and I had an iPhone 3.
Well, we've gone back to alpha now, so
we've gone back to the start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alpha, beta. Who wants to be beta?
They did that with Xbox though, where they went 360 and then they went 1. And that wasn't very good. So is that kind of like what's going to happen here, where they went Gen Z and they were like, I think that's the last time that will be like a good one. And then they went Alpha and they were like, that's fucked.
No, I think they're just going to start the Greek alphabet now.
Oh no, they should do it like Storms and just have random words starting with a letter.
But they don't teach us that anymore. Did they teach that to Gen X?
Storms?
Greek alphabet.
Greek alphabet. I can do the first 5, but that's because I've read Brave New World.
I think they switched it for mindfulness now in schools.
Yeah. I'm sure. I imagine that's working perfectly.
I don't know it.
No, this is a Gen X.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon,
Gamma.
Is
that the third one?
Yeah.
Oh, I always want to say Charlie.
Charlie, no,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what the
the other
police.
one, right? Yeah.
Delta.
Hotel.
Oh, is that like the phonetic alphabet?
Yeah.
The police one.
Imagine being Generation Hotel. You'd be.
That's pretty
sounds
cool.
good. But
Yeah, it sounds good.
I'll be dead by then. So.
Yeah.